It's your first playthrough of Deltarune. Let's hope you went into this masterpiece blind. Anyways, a disconnected voice beckons you and requests you make a vessel, presumably to represent yourself as you play through this game. You make your perfect or fucking bald vessel, and right as you're about to begin, boom, your creation is thrown out, discarded, and you're forced to play as some edgelord, order farming, My Chemical Romance listening, Tumblr browsing, and be teenager. But the question still remains. Yes, your creation, your vessel, was discarded, but discarded where? Where did the vessel go? And most importantly, will it return? This question has been itching at the Deltarune community for years now, and it's one I'd like to address today. Now, assuming you know how to read, which is apparently a high ask for this community, you probably saw the title and thumbnail and know where I stand on this matter. However, I used to be a firm believer in the vessel one day returning and contributing to the plot, so I believe it's only fair to highlight this side of the argument, and the theory it generally buys into. Well, for one, it would be really f***ing cool and rad. That aside, to my knowledge, most people who buy into this side of the argument theorize that the vessel will return in a late hour of the game, after Kris has broken free from the soul, or vice versa. Caster will, dig in his old toy box and find the vessel and then throw it at the soul so it has a body. I'm joking, of course. Kind of. The first part of Kris and the soul going their separate ways is accurate to the theory, but the second part is more debatable. I'll come back to this one later, because a friend of mine gave me a really interesting interpretation when I asked him for his take on this theory. But at this point, this theory is no more than speculation. That is, until you consider the one knight in glow-in-the-dark armor piece of evidence vessel return believers, jeez, that's a mouthful, cling to and live by. After you make your vessel and it gets discarded, it doesn't, well, actually get discarded. All of the data and features you gave it is saved in your game file, presumably to be called upon later for the return of the vessel. I think this just about summarizes all that needs to be known about this theory for this video. If you're interested in learning more about it, there's plenty of other videos going into much more depth than I have, so check them out after this video. So, with that laid out, why do I think the vessel won't be important to Deltarune's plot? I'm not sure how well known of a fact this is, so I'm not gonna baby you and explain every last detail. But basically, if you start a new file from any chapter past chapter 1, you are told to name only yourself. No vessel maker, no naming your vessel, just the name for the file. But a vessel is still saved to said file. I'm not sure if it's randomized or all the basic options or something else entirely, but a vessel will be made regardless. So in the scenario described before where the vessel returns to fulfill the only purpose it was meant to serve, a lot of emotional impact for this moment could be lost if the vessel is just some random thing the player has absolutely zero connection to because they didn't make it. Especially if you imagine there's some fight with it at first, or that some of the options you pick will affect abilities you're able to use or stats you have. I feel like if the vessel was intended to return, this would have been considered, and a mini vessel maker of sorts would have been added alongside the naming prompt. Anyways, I don't have a good transition, so I'm just gonna go to the next point. Think about it. Even a character as elusive as Des, whether you think she's the knight or not, has been mentioned a multitude of times, but there hasn't been so much as a huff of air related to the vessel in game. Yes, there is a lot of community discussion about their fate, but not everyone who has played Deltarune is part of the community. Consider yourself in the shoes of a casual player who played chapter 3 and 4 and thought, yeah, this game's cool, I'll play the next chapters when they come out, and moved on with your life to play Silksong. You played chapters 5, 6, and 7 as they come out, and suddenly this weird blank slate character you completely forgot about bursts into the plot and asserts themselves as someone you're meant to remember. So for a casual player, even when playing the game for the first time way in the future when all the chapters are already out, the vessel, with what game content we have available right now, is completely forgettable, and not intentionally, carefully, kind of forgettable like Des. Again, whether you think she's the knight or not. I mean, outside of this first interaction with the vessel maker, there's not only not a single reference towards them, nothing you do in the vessel maker has an offhand effect on anything. There's not an interaction with a shelf in Santa's store that says something like, oh, there's food on the shelf that has vessel favorite flavor food. No, not a peep about this thing. And no, the assumed to be guest or voice returning to speak to you in chapter 3 and at the end of chapter 4 doesn't count. That's like saying, dude, I met Beethoven because I met his son. What? These are the two primary reasons why I don't believe the vessel will be returning in an important manner. I can, however, still see them returning in certain circumstances. They're almost undeniably going to be referenced at some point, given the fact their data is saved in the game file. So how will this happen? While this is just some speculation for fun, imagine this. We'll just say it's Chapter 6. The fun gang is venturing into the bunker dark world. It's creepy, eerie, and dark.
Say the line, Bart!
Dark, darker, yet darker. Then, at one point, the party walks into a room full of monochrome corpses, disposed and carelessly littered about. One in particular stands out, and, when interacted with, gives the dialogue, feels familiar. This, I feel, would work perfectly. It fits the bill for the vessel returning because of the data saved to the code, but it's also a subtle, easily removable tidbit for those who are unable to make a vessel. Anyways, that's about all, guys. Thanks for watching, etc, etc. Okay, I'm not doing this bit again. Let's talk about the theory my friend proposed. So, to recap, people who think the vessel will return and be important think that when Kris dumps the soul, the vessel will pull up and be the soul's rebound. But how exactly the vessel would return was a bit debatable. A friend of mine, though, proposed an idea that sort of forms a loophole to the rules my argument is trying to establish, if that makes sense. He says, and I quote, Gaster comes on and says something weird and tells you to properly, this time, create a vessel. It's nothing special. What I assume he means by this is that Gaster will take control again and have you make an entirely new vessel rather than fetching your old one that you likely forgot about. In addition, this time he doesn't get interrupted, so you're able to make your vessel to completion this time. The only thing he didn't elaborate on though is how the soul would get back here. But I'll just invoke Occam's razor. Occam. Hold on.
Occam's razor.
Shit. But I'll just invoke Occam's razor and say that when the soul gets completely disconnected from Kris, it's warped to this depths location. I don't quite agree with this interpretation, as there are a couple holes, most notably the one I just had to patch up myself, but it is an interesting one I'd like to bring to light nonetheless. Anyways, I think that's about all, so let's wrap this up. While I can agree that the vessel will almost certainly return, I think their appearance will have little to no relevance to the actual plot. However, I am willing to take a whole 180 character arc-ass transformation and change my opinion on this matter if something like a mini vessel maker is added in a future chapter, like I said earlier. But until then, I stand firm by my stance that the vessel will be fairly trivial to Deltarune's plot. With that being said though, I'd like to hear your thoughts and theories. I'm genuinely curious as to the ways people think the vessel will return, so if you have any cool ideas, let me know in the comments below. That's all from me. Remember to like and subscribe. I'm trying to reach 1,000 subscribers here soon, so it'd mean a lot to me if you did. Until next time, peace.